General Hospital spoilers tease that finally, the real mastermind behind WSB's dark plots has been officially revealed. There is no doubt that Jennifer Smith is the name behind it all. A woman who was once despised, once left out of the big games, has now returned and turned the tables with a force that no one could have expected. Jennifer not only surpassed Brennan, not only manipulated Colette to launch an attack aimed directly at Sonny, but she also built for herself a solid, cold and ruthless underground empire right in the heart of Los Angeles, where she reigns like a ghost that no one dares to challenge. Jennifer's new position has changed the whole situation. She is no longer a small nuisance that Sonny and Carly can easily handle like in the past. Now, Jennifer has become an organized underground force, with a network of professional assassins. A huge financial resource, and above all, a hatred that has been brewing for years, waiting to explode. The underworld in Los Angeles is now in her hands. And Jennifer is making no secret of her ambition to expand her power across the East Coast, with the first and most obvious target, Port Charles. This information is like a shockwave that hits Sonny and Carly. Not only are they facing a well-organized murder plot right when Sonny is at his most vulnerable during heart surgery, but they also have to realize that their own lives, their relationships, even their children, are being pushed into the sights of an unsparing enemy. Jennifer has carefully calculated every step. Taking advantage of Sonny's weakest moment, taking advantage of the chaos in Port Charles, and reaching out to destroy everything he has built. A new obsession is clinging to Port Charles. A sense of unease permeates every house, every corner. Characters who once believed in Sonny's invulnerability are beginning to waver. If Sonny can't protect himself, who can stand against the flood of darkness Jennifer is about to unleash? Collective nightmares begin to brew, as everyone realizes that this game is bigger, more dangerous, and bloodier than anything they've ever faced. Jennifer's shock is not just about overthrowing Sonny. It's about purposeful madness. About her desire to tear down the entire power structure of Port Charles and rebuild it the way she wants. Jennifer doesn't just want to defeat Sonny, she wants to destroy his legacy. To erase his name from the annals of underworld history, to turn him into a forgotten memory, a cold tombstone for those who dare to oppose her. Things are spiraling out of control at breakneck speed. Sonny, as tenacious and experienced as he was, could not deny that he was facing a different kind of enemy this time, not a reckless rival or an opportunist of small stature, but one who planned in silence, acted in the shadows, and struck with absolute ruthlessness. Carly, with her warrior instincts, could sense that they were surrounded on all sides. That their options were narrowing, and that any false move could be the last. Jennifer had planted agents in Port Charles. Loyalists, lurking in the shadows, reporting on Sonny and Carly's every move. One false blink, one ill-timed encounter, could spell their doom. And Jennifer, cold and patient, was waiting for that moment like a predator stalking its prey in the dark. Port Charles had never been closer to disaster. Sonny's allies were beginning to panic. Those who once pledged their allegiance are beginning to waver in the face of the approaching fury. And in the center of the storm, Sonny and Carly, two people who have weathered so much, are left to rely on each other for a fragile escape as everything around them crumbles. A true catastrophe is brewing, one that cannot be reversed. Jennifer doesn't just want victory, she wants destruction. And if Sonny and Carly don't find a way to strike back in time, if they don't quickly rally their remaining loyalists, then no miracle will be enough to save them from the nightmare Jennifer has crafted. Because this time, the predator doesn't want just lives. She wants Port Charles's soul. Brennan is now in a more dangerous position than he ever imagined when he was at the top of his game. In Sonny and Carly's eyes, Brennan is the one who pulled the strings with Colette, the one who secretly plotted to kill Sonny when he was at his weakest. Sonny's anger is boiling like a fire. And Carly vows that no one will threaten her family without paying the price. Brennan is the hunted prey, the obvious enemy, even though he knows the truth is much more complicated. Because what Sonny and Carly don't know is that Brennan is also the victim of a larger game, a game that he once thought he had in his hands. Brennan once believed that Jennifer Smith was just a small piece, a tool that he could use and then discard easily. But he was wrong, terribly wrong. Jennifer had not only broken free from Brennan's control, she had risen quickly, becoming the de facto ruler, challenging every old rule of the underworld. Brennan's desperate attempts to construct a new narrative of control, to force Jennifer back under his thumb, had only made matters worse. Jennifer had not backed down, but had used the chaos Brennan had created to launch new attacks. She was faster, more ruthless, more thorough. No more sneak attacks from the shadows. Jennifer now launched brazen, direct attacks on the shipping lanes, the casinos, the hubs that Sonny and his allies had once believed impregnable. The attacks were like daggers to the heart of Port Charles's underworld. They had not only destroyed Sonny's business infrastructure, but had also instilled fear in every street, every corner. And as the places Sonny once controlled crumbled, those who had sworn their allegiance began to waver, to look to Jennifer as a new, stronger, and more ruthless alternative. Jennifer didn't stop there. She made things even crazier by launching a series of assassinations against those closest to Sonny. One by one, former allies, former associates, and relationships that had once been the core of Sonny's empire were now on Jennifer's blacklist. A text message, a silent gunshot, a midnight explosion. Jennifer had no shortage of means to sow destruction. Meanwhile, Brennan became increasingly isolated. Hunted by Sonny, despised by her former allies, and viewed by Jennifer as a traitor who needed to be purged, Brennan now had no place in any power. He realized that he was no longer the puppet master but a pawn, easily discarded by anyone in this life and death struggle. One mistake, one underestimation of the power of hatred, pushed Brennan from the throne of power to the bottomless abyss. Jennifer, meanwhile, pushed Port Charles further and further to the brink of disaster. She didn't just want to kill Sonny, she wanted to crush the soul of this city. She wanted to turn the buildings that were once symbols of Sonny's power into rubble. She wanted to see Carly cry in despair. She wanted to erase every memory that Sonny left in the hearts of the people. Jennifer wasn't just fighting a battle, she was waging a purge, a campaign of deliberate erasure, planned step by step, second by second. Jennifer's insane obsession with every action was reaching its peak, causing the underworld of Port Charles to no longer recognize itself. Those who were once friends now became traitors. What was once safe territory is now stained with blood and fire. Port Charles is buckling under the weight of a new force. One that forces all survivors to choose between bowing their heads and submitting or being mercilessly destroyed. Sonny and Carly, those seasoned veterans, sense that this time they are fighting a different battle. A war where the old rules no longer apply. A war where every mistake, every delay, can cost lives. And Brennan, who once thought he was behind it all, must now face the bitter truth. No one trusts him anymore, and there is nowhere to run. The haunting Jennifer Smith is dominating the air of Port Charles. And if no one finds a way to stop this storm soon, all that will be left will be ashes and cries of despair. Jennifer's dream is now fully revealed, a dream of domination, not only of Los Angeles, not only of Port Charles, but of the entire underworld network from West Coast to East Coast. She is no longer simply a hunter of personal fame. Jennifer wants more than that. She wants to become the new boss of the mob, the one to whom everyone must bow, the one whose every decision will shake the entire underworld in an instant. And the fact that she is manipulating both the WSB and major criminal organizations proves that this is no longer a game of personal revenge, but the rise of a new dark empire. What is happening proves that one of the most terrifying shocks in the history of Port Charles is gradually taking shape. The Smith family, thought to have rotted and died in the past, now rises stronger than ever under Jennifer's cold iron hand and sharp mind. And what makes everyone more terrified is that she does not only use power and violence. Jennifer also knows how to sow fear, divide loyalties, bribe weak souls, step by step, breaking the foundation that bosses like Sonny spent their lives building. Faced with that prospect, Jason, Anna and Carly have no choice but to act. They know that if Jennifer completes her plan, there will be no Port Charles left to save. No family left to protect. No trust left to exist. Jason, who knows the underworld better than anyone, recognizes the ruthlessness in the way Jennifer runs the game. He knows that someone like Jennifer will not give anyone a second chance. One slip. Just 1 second of hesitation, and he, Anna, Carly and everyone they love will be crushed without mercy. Anna, with her experience as a veteran agent, understands the level of danger of a combined force of mafia and intelligence agency. She had never seen a threat like this, a man who wielded power in the shadows as well as the light. Who knew how to wield intelligence like a sharp weapon, and who was ready to use guns in cold blood to end any resistance. Carly, the lioness mother with unwavering courage, knew that this was not just about protecting Sonny or herself. This was about the future of the children she loved, for Michael, for Jocelyn, for Donna, for Avery. If Jennifer won, that future would be swallowed by darkness. And so, in the midst of Port Charles's chaos, its endless raids and counterattacks, Jason, Anna, and Carly met quietly in secret. In a dark room. The windows shuttered, the lights off, save for the dim glow of a small candle. They knew they needed a plan. Not a defensive plan, but a counterattack bold, unexpected, and devastating enough to make Jennifer back down. They mapped out each target. Each of Jennifer's bases. Each of the weakest links in her network. Jason proposed a series of preemptive strikes. Shut down the underground money lines, cut off the weapons supply lines, and disrupt the assassin contracts Jennifer had worked so hard to establish. Anna agreed, but added. They needed to cut off Jennifer's hand in WSB, find the traitors within and expose them, forcing WSB to turn on the people who had corrupted them. Carly, with her keen intuition, saw a flaw. Jennifer might be powerful, but she was also alone at the top. Once she fanned the flames of suspicion in Jennifer's followers, once their loyalty wavered, her empire would begin to rot from within. Carly proposed a psychological campaign, spreading rumors, distorting information, pitting Jennifer's men against each other. An explosive idea was forming. A full-scale counterattack. Unconstrained by conventional moral codes. If they wanted to survive, if they wanted to save what was left of Port Charles, they would have to be willing to do things they had never done before, to fight like the enemies they had once despised, to become as cold, as ruthless, as determined as Jennifer. There was no room for hesitation. There was no room for softness. A real battle lay ahead, a battle between light and darkness, between a glimmer of hope and a growing despair. And in that battle, Jason, Anna, and Carly knew all too well, if they failed, the price would be not just their lives, but the soul of the city they loved. Sonny, with all his courage and toughness honed over many years of living in the storms of the underworld, finally found a way out of the deadly trap that Jennifer Smith had cleverly set. Poison needles. Stealthy pursuits, direct attacks on the financial network, none of them could defeat Sonny. He had faced the most dangerous enemies, the most powerful forces, and this time was no exception. With cold alertness and sharp survival instinct, Sonny gradually broke the chains that Jennifer had set up, slipping through every small gap to regain his life in the deadly game. But when standing on the brink of life and death, Sonny understood very well that simply escaping death was not enough. This time, if he simply defended, if he kept running away from the new traps that Jennifer had carefully set, sooner or later he would be swept away by the flood of her crazy ambition. Sonny needed more than a survival plan. He needed a new move, a decisive move, powerful enough to turn the tables, deadly enough to suffocate Jennifer's ambitions before she could crush everything Sonny had ever held dear. In Sonny's mind, a burning question kept ringing. How could he not only get revenge on Jennifer, but also protect the people he loved? Because Sonny knew that, in Jennifer's eyes, victory meant more than just taking him down, it meant destroying everything he stood for, his family, his friends, his allies. Once Sonny fell, his loved ones, Carly, Michael, Jocelyn, Donna, Avery, and even his loyal comrades like Jason and Anna, would be next. Sonny needed a whole new narrative of control. One that targeted not just Jennifer personally, but the entire new power structure she had built. Sonny realized that to defeat Jennifer, he had to strike at the root of her power, nip her network in the bud, shattering each link before it could gain a foothold in power. And to do that, Sonny would have to act differently than he had before. No more one-on-one confrontations, no more open battles. Sonny would have to become a shadow warrior, one who struck at his opponent's weakest points with the most deadly blows. He would need to draw in unlikely allies, make temporary alliances with former rivals, even enemies, just to strangle Jennifer from all sides. One of Sonny's top priorities now was to ensure the absolute safety of his family. He would not let anyone pay the price for this war but himself. Sonny planned to put his loved ones under heavy protection, scattering them across safe locations, cutting off all possible points of contact that Jennifer could trace. He trusted no one but Jason, Anna, and Carly. Sonny knew that if he made a mistake, Jennifer would hold his family hostage to force him to surrender. Sonny also planned a counterattack targeting Jennifer's finances. Money is the lifeblood of any powerful empire. And Sonny knew that cutting off her financial resources could expose Jennifer's fatal weaknesses. He assigned Brick, his loyal behind-the-scenes manager, to carry out massive cyber attacks to cripple Jennifer's secret accounts and spread false rumors to confuse her financial allies. But Sonny also knew that hitting the economy alone was not enough. Jennifer was the type of person who would fight to the end, risking her life to achieve her goals. So Sonny planned one final, devastating blow, exposing Jennifer to the very forces she had been trying to manipulate. If he could force the WSB to turn against Jennifer, if he could expose the betrayals and manipulations within their ranks, Sonny knew he could isolate Jennifer, turn her from predator to prey. The revenge Sonny was preparing was not just about finishing off an enemy. It was a fight for the survival of a family, a community, a city. Sonny was no longer fighting for himself. He was fighting for Carly, for Michael, for the children he had sworn to protect with his life. He was fighting for what Port Charles had stood for: loyalty, love, sacrifice. This time, Sonny knew he could not afford to make a mistake. He could not hesitate. He could not relent. Once he's on the move, he must strike straight at the heart of his enemy, and he can't stop until Jennifer Smith is wiped out of the game, forever. While Sonny was busy planning decisive moves to turn the tables on Jennifer, a new variable quietly emerged, changing the pace and nature of the war he was pursuing. That variable was named Natalia. Initially, Natalia's support for Sonny was only discreet gestures, silent actions to supply information, protect the weak links in his network. But over time, as the storms grew more violent, as dangers surrounded from all sides, the bond between Sonny and Natalia quickly went beyond the limits of normal collaboration. Natalia was unlike anyone Sonny had ever known. Not only did she possess the sharp intellect and steely will needed to survive in this chaotic underworld, but she also carried a powerful source of energy, a wild vitality that could move even the most hardened souls. In Natalia's eyes, Sonny finds not only understanding, but also a glimmer of trust, something he thought he had lost long ago amid betrayals and intrigues. At first, the two simply rely on each other to survive. But with each joint mission, with each time they hide, strike back, and fight against the oppression Jennifer is imposing on Port Charles, an emotion begins to grow between them that is hard to name. An irresistible attraction. Simmering but intense, gradually erupting into an unstoppable undercurrent. Sonny, who had closed his heart after so much loss, begins to realize that Natalia is more than just an ally. She is gradually becoming his new source of spiritual strength. Someone willing to fight by his side without empty promises. Someone who understands the darkness inside him without judgment. And it was Natalia's quiet strength that allowed Sonny, for the first time in a long time, to dream of something more than survival. Natalia, for her part, felt it too. She saw in Sonny not just a powerful tycoon struggling with fate, but also a man with a wounded heart, a weary warrior yearning for a little peace. And she knew that. Even if the world turned its back on him, even if all of Port Charles fell into chaos, she would stand by him, fight together, bear the burden together, share all the bitterness. A budding romance between the line of life and death, between murderous conspiracies and power struggles, was something no one expected. But it happened, as naturally as a breath in a storm. And with that, a new power couple was gradually taking shape, Sonny and Natalia, two separate fires now merging into a force that was hard for anyone to resist. The explosion they create is more than just personal. Their combined bravery, strength, intelligence, and loyalty have begun to turn the tide of the battle against Jennifer. Sonny's allies see it. Sonny's enemies sense it. And Jennifer herself, in rare moments of uncertainty, realizes that the bond between Sonny and Natalia may be the most dangerous weapon against her, one that money, power, and her army of assassins cannot defeat. Port Charles, torn apart by bloody battles, now begins to stir with the emergence of a new alliance. A love born in the crossfire. A power couple challenging destiny. A silent vow that even if it means facing the world, Sonny and Natalia will never back down. And from the ashes of conspiracies, from the painful losses, something stronger than hatred rises, love, strength, and an unquenchable desire, a desire to protect what they believe in with all their blood and life.